I want to know how much longer the owner's going to watch this crap. Because the fans have had it. We deserve better. You're worried more about your stadium than you are your football team. That's the perception, Jimmy. Teams are hiring. The Falcons got their coach. The Titans hired. They're hiring all these coaches. What is taking so long? The Browns have been working on this for 3 weeks. What's going on? Is Andrew really running this, or is Jimmy using Andrew to do what he wants to do, the owner? That's a legitimate question. We've seen the meddling in the past. Is Andrew really doing this, or the Haslams have their favorites? People keep going, who do you want? Who do you like? Who do you want? I don't know. Folks, I don't know. I just know this. I don't like the process already. I don't. I don't. Do you have to keep Jim Schwartz? Do you not have to keep Jim Schwartz? Is he really in play for head coach, or is this just they want him around as a DC? Is he really that valuable? I don't.
The Cleveland Browns are falling apart again. Around the NFL, teams are making aggressive moves, locking in championship-caliber coaches and building toward contention. Meanwhile, the Browns are doing what they've perfected over the past 2 decades, overthinking every decision, letting management interfere with football operations, and setting up yet another catastrophic failure. And Cleveland radio legend Tony Rizzo? He's absolutely fed up.
9 years you can't get to the Super Bowl. Got a problem with that?
I don't.
I don't either.
This coaching search isn't just about filling a vacancy. It's about finding the right leader who can develop a franchise quarterback and finally pull Cleveland out of decades of organizational misery. Right now, the Browns are fumbling this opportunity in spectacular fashion. Here's the situation. 10 NFL teams entered this offseason needing head coaches. 10. It's an absolute feeding frenzy, with organizations racing to lock down the next Ben Johnson, the next Mike Vrabel, the next Kurt Signetti, proven winners who can transform franchises overnight. So what are the Browns doing? 3 weeks into their search, they're still conducting interviews while everyone else is making final decisions and assembling coaching staffs. Jeff Hafley is heading to Miami. Robert Saleh landed in Tennessee. Jim Harbaugh is taking over the Giants. And Kevin Stefanski, yes, the same coach Cleveland just fired, has already been hired by Atlanta. The coaching carousel is spinning at lightning speed. And Cleveland? They're frozen in place, paralyzed by indecision and dysfunctional internal politics.
You have the worst offense in the league. Your GM screwed this quarterback thing up like I've never seen in my life. I've never seen anything like it. Kids that play Madden could have done a better job.
Rizzo laid it out bluntly when ranking the remaining teams still searching for head coaches. With the Bills, Steelers, Cardinals, Raiders, Ravens, and Browns all hunting, Cleveland isn't exactly the most attractive destination. The Cardinals might be the only worst landing spot, and that's debatable. At least Arizona doesn't carry Cleveland's notorious reputation as a place where coaching careers go to die. Here's where Rizzo really unleashed his frustration. He asked the question every Browns fan is thinking but terrified to say out loud. Is Andrew Berry actually controlling this coaching search? Or is owner Jimmy Haslam calling the shots from behind the curtain?
Is Andrew really doing this, or the Haslams have their favorites? But Chris, at one point last week, I text Chops and I go, Myles Garrett's running the coaching search. Because he wants Jim Schwartz.
Right.
That's not radio drama. That's not a hot take for ratings. That's genuine concern rooted in years of Haslam's well-documented interference. This is the same owner who's burned through coach after coach, building a toxic organizational culture so damaged that top candidates hesitate before even returning Cleveland's calls. The same owner whose collaborative approach has always been code for, I'm going to meddle in football decisions because I signed the paychecks. And now, with the Browns potentially positioned to draft a franchise-changing quarterback, Haslam's influence is all over a search that should be clean, efficient, and laser-focused on the future. The entire process feels compromised. Reports indicate the Browns want to retain Jim Schwartz as defensive coordinator, or they're seriously considering him for the head coaching job itself. That's not how you attract elite offensive minds capable of developing a young quarterback. Let's examine the Jim Schwartz situation closely because it perfectly illustrates everything broken about the Browns' approach. Schwartz is a solid defensive coordinator. Nobody's questioning his ability. His defense performed admirably despite being stuck on the field constantly because Cleveland's offense was completely anemic. But here's the critical problem. Schwartz's defense went 5-12 this season. 5 wins and 12 losses. You don't build championship-caliber organizations by holding on to coordinators from losing seasons. You don't attract elite head coaching candidates by dictating who they must keep on staff before they've even been hired.
I need offense. Yes, I know all the teams, 3 of the 4 teams left are defense and defensive coaches, I get it. But you still have to have an offense. Don't overlook that. And don't poo-poo that. You need to be able to have a team that could score points anytime they touch the ball. Not 12-play drives. You got to be explosive.
Boom, there it is. Stefanski dealt with organizational restrictions and predetermined staff structures. How did that turn out? 2 playoff appearances in 5 years, with rosters talented enough to compete for championships. Now Atlanta gets to deal with him. The Browns are repeating the exact same mistakes, creating the same restrictive environment that's destroyed multiple coaching regimes, and Rizzo sees it with absolute clarity. If Myles Garrett wants Schwartz retained, fine. Garrett's with franchise cornerstone, and his input matters. But you cannot let player preferences dictate your head coaching hire. You find the absolute best coach available, give them complete autonomy to build their staff, and let them execute their vision. This might be Rizzo's most critical point, and it's getting buried beneath all the Schwartz speculation.
Teams are hiring. The Falcons got their coach. The Titans hired. They're hiring all these coaches. What is taking so long? The Browns have been working on this for 3 weeks. What's going on?
Exactly. Look at what's winning across the NFL right now. The teams still playing deep into January aren't grinding out conservative 12-play, clock-controlled drives. They're explosive. They're dynamic. They're lighting up scoreboards. The Browns finished 30th in points per game this season. 30th. You can field the league's best defense, which Cleveland didn't have, and it won't matter if you can't score points. Yet the coaching search appears focused on defensive continuity rather than offensive firepower. That's completely backwards. That's organizational malpractice when you're potentially about to invest a top 5 draft pick in a quarterback. Whether it's Shedeur Sanders, Sanders, or whoever's available when Cleveland picks, that young quarterback desperately needs an offensive-minded head coach, or at minimum, a coach that prioritizes offensive infrastructure. They need Kyle Shanahan's creativity, Sean McVay's innovation, Ben Johnson's aggression. What are they potentially getting instead? Another defensive-minded coach saddled with predetermined coordinators and organizational handcuffs. Todd Monken is getting a second interview. Monken, who just spent 2 years as Cleveland's offensive coordinator, watching Deshaun Watson completely implode? Is he the answer? Rizzo doesn't sound convinced, and Cleveland fans shouldn't be either. Here's what makes this entire situation so maddening. The blueprint for success is right there. Teams across the league are executing it successfully. Look at what Curt Cignetti just accomplished at Indiana. Took over a program, installed his system, brought his people, and won a national championship in his first season. No compromises, no committee decisions, no predetermined assistants forcing his hand. Mike McDaniel went to Seattle and completely transformed the Seahawks in 1 season. Dan Campbell turned Detroit from league laughingstock to legitimate championship contender by securing complete organizational buy-in and autonomy. These dramatic turnarounds happen when ownership steps back and lets football people make football decisions. They happen when coaches have the freedom to build their vision without constant interference. The Browns? They're doing the exact opposite. 3 weeks of interviews, multiple rounds with the same candidates, whispers about organizational preferences and player input. It's death by committee all over again.
I'm not going to bury Andrew Berry and Jimmy before they pick the next head coach. I think Jimmy has a lot more to do with this, folks, than y'all think. I do.
What's going on is what always happens in Cleveland. Organizational dysfunction disguised as thoroughness. Rizzo also highlighted something fascinating playing out across the league right now. Coaches are getting fired for roster failures, not coaching failures. Mike Tomlin never posted a losing season in Pittsburgh, despite cycling through Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields at quarterback. Sean McDermott consistently made the playoffs in Buffalo, despite limited offensive weapons around Josh Allen. These coaches are being scapegoated for general manager failures. And now those same general managers, or in Cleveland's case, the same ownership structure, are conducting coaching searches. The Browns have serious roster problems. Deshaun Watson is a crushing contract albatross. The offensive line needs major work. The receiver room is wildly inconsistent. But ownership isn't accepting accountability for those roster construction failures. They're just cycling through coaches and hoping someone can perform magic with fundamentally flawed pieces. It's insanity. It's the literal definition of insanity, doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. Let's connect this to why this moment matters so critically. The Browns are likely picking in the top 5 of the 2026 NFL Draft. They have a legitimate chance to reset the quarterback position. Truly reset it, not just throwing more money at broken situations. Shedeur Sanders might be available. Other elite quarterback prospects will be on the board. This is Cleveland's opportunity to start completely fresh with a young, talented signal carrier and build the right way from the foundation up. But you cannot develop a franchise quarterback without the proper coaching infrastructure. You can't do it with organizational chaos, predetermined coordinators, and owner interference. You just can't. Look at what happened to Baker Mayfield in Cleveland compared to what he's accomplishing in Tampa Bay with proper coaching and organizational stability. Look at Sam Darnold finally thriving in Minnesota after years of dysfunction with the Jets. Quarterbacks need stability. They need offensive-minded leadership. They need organizations that prioritize their development above everything else. Is Cleveland providing that environment? Based on this coaching search, absolutely not. What makes this entire situation even more maddening is the complete lack of urgency. While the Browns deliberate and conduct third and fourth interviews, other teams are assembling staffs, implementing systems, and preparing for the draft. Atlanta already has Stefanski installing his offensive philosophy. Miami has Hafley building his defensive scheme. These organizations are weeks ahead of Cleveland in their preparation. And in a league where margins are tight-risen, where every week of off-season work matters, the Browns are falling behind before the competition even starts. If they draft a quarterback in April, that rookie will arrive to an organization still figuring out its identity, still assembling its coaching staff, still navigating internal politics. That's not how you set up a young quarterback for success.
What makes this even more frustrating is the complete lack of urgency. While the Browns deliberate and conduct third and fourth interviews, other teams are assembling staffs, implementing systems, and preparing for the draft. Atlanta already has Stefanski installing his offensive philosophy. Miami has Hafley building his defensive scheme. These organizations are weeks ahead of Cleveland in their preparation. And in a league where margins are razor thin, where every week of off-season work matters, the Browns are falling behind before the competition even starts. If they draft a quarterback in April, that rookie will arrive to an organization still figuring out its identity, still assembling its coaching staff, still navigating internal politics. That's not how you set up a young quarterback for success. What makes Rizzo's commentary so compelling is his authentic frustration mixed with desperate optimism. He's a Cleveland guy through and through. He wants this to work. He's trying to stay positive. But you can hear it in his voice. He doesn't believe it anymore. He's watched this movie before. He knows how it ends. Cleveland fans deserve better. They deserve an organization that makes bold, decisive moves. They deserve ownership that trusts its football personnel and stays out of football operations. They deserve a coaching search that prioritizes finding the absolute best candidate, not the most politically safe one. Instead, they're getting the same old Browns, overthinking, overcomplicating, and inevitably under-delivering. The Cleveland Browns stand at a crossroads. They can either learn from their mistakes and conduct a coaching search based on football merit, offensive innovation, and quarterback development, or they can continue down the same path of organizational dysfunction that's defined this franchise for 2 decades. Right now, every sign points to the latter. The Schwartz situation, the dragging timeline, the lack of offensive focus, the Haslam interference. It's all building toward another Browns disaster. And when that top 5 pick comes around in April, when Shedeur Sanders or another franchise quarterback is available, Cleveland better hope they've built the right infrastructure to develop him, because based on this coaching search, that's far from guaranteed. Tony Rizzo sees it, Cleveland fans see it, the entire NFL sees it. The question is, do the Browns see it? Or are they too busy staring in the mirror, seeing what they want to see, and ignoring the organizational dysfunction staring back at them? 3 weeks in, and there are still no answers. Just more questions, more doubt, and more evidence that some franchises never learn. The coaching carousel keeps spinning, the Browns keep stumbling, and Cleveland fans keep suffering. Same as it ever was.